Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm going to get molested here. This is Mitzie, this is Lola, and this is their roadmap to success. As you can see, they don't have a lot of respect for people's personal space. So one of the first things we talked about was exercise. Yes, you have luckily you're a soft mouth when you're licking. She has a hard mouth for taking treats. One of the tricks that I use for that is basically I get a metal spoon, an oversized one, hold it in front of the dog's nose with some kibble on it. If they're knocking it over, then you use peanut butter or something that sticks to the spoon. She'll chomp down on it and her teeth will hit the metal, and she won't like that. And then it'll teach her to start using her nibble, using her lips and her tongue. When she does that, say the word, something like the word of gentle or easy or something soft or something along those lines. Yes, we're going to bite each other's head. Yeah, oh, there we go. And so just teaching the dog to have a soft mouth is really helpful because it's not fun for your hands. Now, these dogs, basically, they're walked pretty much every day, but it happens after the guardians get back from work. And the best time to walk, I'll say the best time to walk your dog actually is multiple times. Dogs sleep 17 hours a day, and when they're asleep, they're recharging their batteries, and they're ready to go. Now, Great Danes and their Great Dane mixes, but are a pretty passive dog, or not a super high energy dog like a Dalmatian or a Vizsla or a Lab or something like that. But they do have some energy. And so when they do this, they get rambunctious like this, or barking at you or things like that. What I want you guys to interpret that is, this is the dog's way of saying, I have too much extra energy. Either Lola or Mitzie is going to take care of this, or you're going to take care of this. And right now, you guys are tired when you get home from work, which is a lot of people are, but the dogs just get in a habit of not continue or not getting the exercise burned, and then they can end up getting injury. Exercise or lack of exercise isn't usually going to cause problems, but it will amplify the problems that you have, or getting more exercise will set them up for success. So like if we're going to have guests come over, exercising them on the stairs like I talked about is a great way to do that. Playing fetch. You can go for a walk. Walks are a good way to exercise, but they're not a really efficient form of exercise. Also, I talked to the guardians about keeping an exercise journal. And so we have an exercise journal. We write down the time and how much exercise we got the dogs. Also, we write the negative stuff in there. When they do this, write down the time, really barky at the window or whatever it is. And after a while, you start recognizing every time we go longer than 4 hours before we exercise the dogs. That's when we get this behavior. Well, let's just beat them the punch. And every 3 hours and 30 minutes, we'll take them, spend 5 minutes on the stairs or whatever it is. Now, I came in and I gave them both a bully stick, and that really, they both separated and they chew on the bully stick. That's a great thing to do as well. So maybe we exercise, we have our guests come over, and give them 10 minutes to recover before the guests come over. When the guests come over, the guests can do the exercise that I showed you in the video at the top, and then when the dogs come over, they have the bully sticks. And then basically just make the dog sit before they get it. They shouldn't get it for free. And then give each dog a bully stick, and then they run off in different places. Now they're practicing being in the room without reacting to the guest. They need to practice really everything they do. Keep the exercise journal for about a month. Write down all the stuff. And remember, give a letter grade at the end of the day. And then if it was a low letter grade the next day, get them more exercise the next day with whatever the exercise is. That's passive training. Passive training is one of the little secrets that I went over this session. Passive training is waiting for the dogs to organically offer you the behavior that you want on their own without any influence from me. So every time the dog comes to you, the guardian just did it off camera, pet the dog and say come. Every time the dog sits near you, pet it and say sit, preferably under the chin. Every time it lays down, pet it and say crash or chill or whatever your word is for lay down. When they drink, call it happy hour. When they eat, come up with your favorite types of restaurants or favorite meals, and just when one dog eats, maybe we say sushi. When the other dog eats, maybe we say lobster, or whatever it is. And so now we come up with these funny command words for the dogs to eat, to drink. They bring you toys. Right now we don't have a lot of toys because the dogs do sometimes challenge each other for toys. But as we flip the leader-follower dynamic by enforcing rules and passive training and adding structure, that should be less and less of that. We'd like them to have a whole bunch of great things to chew on. Otherwise, they're going to continue chewing on stuff in the house. Now, the other option, so passive training is waiting for the dog to organically offer the behavior, and I use the watchword of testify, but you can say any word you want. That means that I just missed an opportunity to pet the dog for doing something. The next thing that we do is, that I talked about, was petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is when the dog comes up and paws at me or nudges me or barks for attention. If I pet it, then I'm telling the dog, yes, you're the boss of me. When you tell me what to do, I jump. Well, and then that confuses the dog and think that they're in charge. And both these dogs, I think they're in charge of the humans. And so now what we're going to say is when you tell the human what to do, nothing happens. But when the human tells you what to do, if you do it, then you get a reward. After a while, that's passive training again. After a while, the dog, we're definitely not going to go with that one. We haven't got the rules yet, but thanks for the illustration. So we're going to give the dog a counter order. Tell it to sit, sit. Remember to pet under the chin whenever possible and say just the command word, crash. So every time your dog does things you want on its own, we pet it for passive training. Every time that it does things or it's demanding attention from us, or if we want to pet the dog, we tell the dog to do, sit, or do something to earn it. When it does, then it gets that reward. After enough repetition, the dogs will just start sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention, which we definitely like. And I use the word paycheck for this one. We also talked about rules. One of the rules I suggest is not allowing the dogs on the furniture. As you can see, the dogs not only are on the furniture, but not necessarily treating it all that great. And they're big dogs, and they just don't even know any better. Sometimes they might rip or tear something. They're just roughhousing with each other. Well, if your guests are here or you have people, you're here yourself, you don't want the dogs jumping up on top of you. There's a difference if I invite the dog in my lap versus the dog's taking the liberty on its own, which is what these dogs are doing. So one of the rules I suggest is not allowing the dogs on the furniture for 66 days minimum. It takes actually about 66 days to form a behavior pattern, or as long as the problem's still going on. So until your dog stops barking and jumping and all the rest of this stuff, you're going to continue to basically, sorry, I just said something really weird on TV. But you're going to continue, if your dog barks for attention, you give it attention, then it's just going to continue doing that. So for the furniture, what I usually suggest is getting a X-Mats, the letter X with M-A-T-S, and basically you put one on each cushion and then on this chair over here. So the dog comes over, I'd sit there, but there's these little plastic X-Mats are keeping me off. And at the same time I would do this, I would give them a dog bed at the same time. Now, if you go to doggoneproblems.com, click on dog training tips on a desktop, on the right side of the page, there'll be a search box. On your phone, it'll be towards the bottom. Type in dog bed. I have a bunch of videos where I show you how to teach your dog to go to the dog bed on command. But if we take away the furniture, we like to do that at the same time. That really gives the dogs motivation. That way the dogs see, we're down here and the humans are up here. So that helps them see a distinction between the two of us. At the end of that period of time, if you decide you don't want to invite the dog up, you invite Mitzi. It's just a one-time pass for Mitzi and only for good behavior. So if Mitzi gets up here and starts barking at her sister, then Mitzi has to get down. Or Mitzi gets up here with an invitation, she goes down to get a drink of water. When she comes back, she would need another invitation. So this way, the dogs start to see that humans are controlling the resource and have a more status position. I also recommend the guardians go to a structured feeding for the dogs. They'll need to move it because you can see in the background it's a really open floor plan. So we might need to find a mudroom or a laundry room or something like that where there's a doorway we can control it. So we have the dogs out of the room, put the food down, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to eat something in 5 or more bites first. Then we're going to invite the dogs to come over, and they get to eat one at a time. And when whichever dog comes in, whoever's behaving the best, because they're siblings, is who I would invite in next. And when Mitzi comes over, maybe we call her Schnitzel. See, I had a dog named Mitzi, and we had a dog named Schnitzel, so I'm incorporating all this stuff. So when Mitzi takes her first bite of food, we say the word Schnitzel. So that becomes her command word using passive training. When she gets done, if she leaves food in her bowl and walks away, we pick up her bowl, we dump it empty, and we put the empty bowl back down. She doesn't eat it again until the next meal. And then we invite the next dog to come in, and that dog, and then Lola gets to eat without Mitzi breathing down her throat. Make sure you're eating 5 or more bites of something before whoever's feeding them before you actually feed them, so they see that you have more rank or authority because you have more the first eating position. And then something else I noticed, because they're not full-grown they're full-grown, but they're not Great Dane size, but they're pretty big dogs. Great Danes are notorious for bloat. And a lot of the medical research says that you should have an elevated feeder for dogs that have a proclivity to get bloat. Also, it's cleaner. When they drink, they actually scoop water backwards in their mouth. Well, if my head is straight down, the gravity is bringing a lot of that straight down. If you get the dog to tilt their head at an angle, when they lick it back up, it's being caught behind their teeth. So you get less drippies on the floor. Let me see, what else? Shouldn't be allowed if the humans are eating, shouldn't be allowed within 7 feet of the humans. The humans should not be feeding the people food to the dog. If we do, we're going to chop it up and we're going to give it to them the next day so it doesn't smell like food that came from our plate, which is confusing for dogs. Another rule I have is they have to sit at the door. Go to the door and say sit. and they don't sit within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down somewhere, wait 1 minute, then try again. Next time, walk away for 2 minutes. Next time, walk away for 4 minutes. Each time they don't comply, the first time, and only say it once, the longer they have to wait before they get another opportunity to do it. It's kind of a version of playing hard to get. And so now you have the motivation. Dog wants to go outside. You want to do something? Then you got to do something for me. Sit. Pretty easy. Well, the more they sit, the more they get in a habit of sitting, and then the more that we form a behavior pattern of things that we like to do. Remember, most people confuse our dogs into doing the things we don't want. It chews our carpet, we chew it out. It barks, we tell it to shut up. It jumps up on our gas, we tell it to get down. But it comes and sits in front of us, we don't do anything. It lays down at our feet, we don't do anything. That's why passive training and petting with a purpose becomes so powerful, because it's motivating and rewarding the dogs for the things we want. And the nice thing about those is, like the video that's above where we teach the dog not to jump on their own, the dogs are learning this on their own as opposed to saying sit, go here, go there, do this, do that. Let me see. We also went over a focus exercise. I have videos for the focus exercise, so if you forgot how to do that, make sure you go there to my website or message me. I'm happy to share that with you. Remember, within 7 days, you want the dog to stare at you for 15 seconds in the house and practice a whole lot of different places in the house. Then we're going to do it outside when there's no distractions. Go back to 1 second, 1 second, and get to the point where you're at 15 seconds out in the backyard. Then we're doing our walks, but now we're triggering the response. We're saying when there's nobody around for no reason, sit, or not sit, focus. The dog looks up at you, and as you're walking, you go boom, boom, 1 second, 1 second. Then after a while, you go 2 seconds, and then 3 seconds. But the raise it to your nose is always 1 second. This part is where we're going to go slower and slower until eventually you get to the point where you're doing 15-second focus. Now, one thing I forgot to go over with the Guardians during the session, so I'm just going to do it here, is the ways that I disagree with the dog. I use 4 escalating consequences, and I'm going to talk a little bit faster than I probably should, but I want to get through it quickly, and I don't want this to be a marathon video. So the first thing I do is I make a hissing sound like a cat. Now, I like doing that because I can have 10 versions of that. Level 1 hiss is like tss. Level 10, I have to hold my hand in front of my mouth because I'm spiddling. That's the little kid that was holding the baseball bat I was talking about earlier. So basically, kids shooting on TV, unfortunately. So basically, I hiss before the dog does the wrong thing. I translated no, the hiss to no, don't do that, or most effectively, don't even think about doing that. So if you're eating and the dog's not supposed to be within 7 feet of you, and let's say there's a carpet that is at the edge, when the dog is a foot away from the carpet approaching, I would hiss at that point. If the dog crossed the boundary, then I would go to the next consequence. If it's running, I would hiss 3 feet away, so it has an opportunity to slow down. So when I get done with this, remind me about the kennel. And so that's the first consequence, hiss 1 time per incident. Second thing I do is I abruptly stand up. When dogs communicate with each other, they do it through movement and body language, but they also meander around. So they need a way of qualifying, I'm communicating versus I'm meandering. The way they do that is they have a singular, bold, sudden, overdramatic movement followed by no movement. I translate it as almost a period at the end of the sentence. So the second consequence is to stand up abruptly, turn to face your dog. Now, when you stand up abruptly, that's the action position for a dog because you're burning the energy. Your authority goes whatever direction your belly button is pointing. So stand up abruptly, the dog will take 2 steps backwards or more, saying, oh, what's going on? Well, you're serious. Yes, I am. So and then the dog's going to move around the room to qualify, are you talking to me? So you keep your hips pointed at the dog, wherever it goes, until the dog tells you it's done challenging you. And it will tell you it's done challenging you by doing one of 3 things. Really, one thing. It'll stop moving. It'll stand, sit, or lie down. So as soon as it does that, you want to take 2 steps backwards. Now, earlier I talked about multiple steps as meandering. So most of my clients, I say take 2 steps backwards. I go 1, 2, shuffle, 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 then to Wonder Woman. To a dog, that looks like a whole bunch of steps. Oh, he's not communicating. He's just meandering around. So when you stand up abruptly, pivot and face the dog. As soon as it stops moving, take 2 steps backwards. Left foot, right foot, and then pause. Don't add a 3rd shuffle step. Then wait for 1 second and go back to doing what you're doing. However, if what you were doing is what I'm doing now and sitting down, when you sit down, you lose some perceived authority. I'm sitting pretty deeply in the couch. I'd like to have you sit on the edge of the couch because you should expect the dog to come back and challenge you again, and most likely will. So at that point, you would stand up again. So that's the second consequence. Stand up abruptly, turn to face the dog, keep it in front of you until it stops moving, then take 2 steps backwards, pause for 1 second, and go back to doing what you're doing. The third consequence is marching deliberately at the dog. Front facing is confrontational, dogs sideways is approachable. So I'm going to march deliberately at the dog. Now, when I say march, I don't mean stomping, but I'm moving fairly briskly at the dog and move wherever the dog goes. If the dog goes there, don't keep marching this way. March towards the dog until the dog turns sideways to you or greater. When a dog turns sideways to you, that's a way of saying it's not this is confrontational, this is approachable. When it turns sideways when you're marching at it, it's saying, I gotcha. I'm not challenging you anymore. So as soon as it turns sideways, stop in place immediately. The timing of that is super duper important. So once you stop, then you're going to go to the second consequence. You're going to pivot as the dog moves around the room. It stops moving. Take those 2 steps backwards and pause. The only time this one doesn't apply is if the dog is already breaking a rule. Let's say the line is here. The dog's not supposed to be on this side of the line. And so I get up and I march to the dog and turn sideways here. Well, it's still supposed to be over this line. So I would crash into the dog. I would just keep on walking towards the dog and bumping into it until it crosses the line. Then I stop at the line. This is how we enforce an invisible line or a boundary or border. Now, dogs are going to try to go around you, so you take a step to the side to block, take a second step to the side to block. If it takes a third, if it challenges again, now I step forward and to the side. So I'm going kind of diagonally towards the dog, so I'm kind of pushing it further away from whatever it's challenging for. So that's the third escalating consequence. March deliberately at the dog, and if the dog's still there, run into the dog. Don't slow down. Otherwise, the dog's like, I don't have to move. You'll stop. Nuh-uh. You're going to get run over. All right, so that's the third one. The fourth one is what I call a leash timeout. I put the dog on a leash. I step on the leash about, in these dogs' case, about 4 feet away from where it attaches to the collar, and I don't say a word. What I'm saying is, look, you're being defiant, so the consequence is you lose all freedom. I wait for the dog to sit down, and I do not tell it to sit. When it sits down, it will sit as far away as the leash will allow it to be tense. So I take my foot that's on the leash, I slide it and the leash towards the dog to take the tension off of the leash. A minute later, sometimes several minutes later, the dog will lay down, as they're both doing now. When it lays down, I very subtly take my foot off the leash. I don't tell the dog we're done. I don't take the leash off. I leave it on so if the dog runs around and misbehaves again, I can detach the leash. Or I can, reapply the consequence. Or if a couple minutes go by and it's good, then I detach the leash. Now, it is dangerous for a dog to drag the leash around unsupervised, so only do that if you're here watching the dog. Now, I mentioned the kennel earlier, and one of the dogs is kenneled, one of the other dogs has separation anxiety and freaks out if it's in the kennel. But Lola is the one who's kenneled, and she's pretty excitable sometimes when we go to let her out of the kennel. So what I would do is start reaching for the handle, and as soon as she gets excited, pull your hand back, and just wait. And as soon as she gets calm again, reach again. So you go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. Eventually it's like, oh, just because she reaches for it doesn't mean the door's opening. Then I jiggle it and pull my hand back and jiggle it a couple more times. Then I lift it up an inch or two and then put it back down. Gradually breadcrumb your way through the entire deal, so by the time you open the door, she's sitting and she's calm and relaxed. I have videos for this. If you want them, let me know, and I'm happy to share them with you. Make sure when we come home that we are not petting the dogs or talking to them or engaging with them. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically rewarding. If your dog jumps up on you and pet it, you're saying, I like you jumping up on me, and I like you excited. And excited is when they're going to be most apt to make mistakes. So when you come home, I mentioned one of the guardians. Sometimes one of the guardians, if the guardians come home and the dog is out of the kennel, then they're more excitable. When they're separate, and this is a good illustration that training dogs is easier one at a time. So let's say they both are out, text each other before you come home, and then come to the door and jiggle the handle a little bit, but pull up your security camera feed first. And the other guardian just does their own business. Don't say no, don't tell them what to do. Just sit here, watch TV, and don't get up and answer the door. We want to, the dog, that'll set the dogs off, or if you go to the door, that will set them off. You standing there is going to be like, why are you slamming the door? You're not going to go get it? And so the first stage is we jiggle the handle, and we're watching the deal. And they're going to rush the door and jump up, and we wait. And for them to settle down, jiggle it again. And then we do the deadbolt, jiggling. And we're doing all these individual steps. Eventually we're going to open it a crack, and if you see the dogs get really wiggly and start jumping up, we close the door and step back outside. So if our partner can make us a cocktail or a snack or something, have it waiting in the garage with a little chair, that way it's not so frustrating for us, but we can practice these things when we have time to practice. Now, once the dogs get good with you, so you should practice a couple times a day with each dog. Make sure the other dog is away. So put it in the kennel or outside, preferably not in the kennel though, because that'll make more excitement. But eventually we want to get to the point where when they're not jumping up on for you, then we're going to invite guests to come over, and neighbors would be great, like I talked about in the video above, and practice the same exercise. So this is the video above is about jumping. Now, that jumping is an offshoot of the excitement, but if we help them practice, people come to the door and they jiggle it. Sometimes nobody even comes in. So you could even have a guest come over, jiggle it again, and you're watching the security camera, and there's someone at the door. Okay, we'll see you later. So you see one of the neighbor kids comes by. I mean, you would preferably want to do this with you in here. Now, dog's have an opposition reflex, so when I push the dog back, dog's probably going to come back a second time. Well, of course, it didn't do it there. So for this, what I would do is, Mitzie, come here, sweetheart. Come on up here. Want a treat? So if I want to get the dogs to get down, what I usually do is I throw a treat on the ground, well, I throw it further so the dog gets to go down completely down. And say the word off as soon as the dog goes there. Come, that's passive training. Also, you can ask it to leave a room. Throw a treat outside the room. When it goes outside the room, say out. It's a nice way to create a vocabulary and make your dogs want to listen to you. Secrets. So every time it does that in your ear, say secrets. Every time it kisses you, smoochies, or whatever the words are that you want. Now, again, you see the dog's invading my personal space because it has too much access. After not being on the furniture for a while, you won't have as much of this as a problem. Crash. All right, make sure that you're eating first. I went over that. Is there anything else that you want me to go over?
Just, I think we're good.
All right. Now, if you have questions or problems or things stop working, please call or text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. So I have videos for all this stuff I can share with you. And I don't care if it's 5 seconds after I walk out this door, if it's 5 years from now, make sure you let me know if you have any questions or problems. Lola, this pretty girl, come on up here, Lola. Well, this is Lola, this is Mitzie, and this is their roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you meet it. Right? Kisses. There we go.